All right, so this is it. This is the last one, and it should be pretty short. So for number 12, first of all, you would take the apartment complexes and number them from 1 to 33. And of course, the first 9, you would need to put a 0 in front of the digit to make them all 2-digit numbers. Then you would go to the table, and if you didn't have instructions from the textbook, you would have to randomly select a line or a place on the table to start. It wouldn't necessarily have to be at the beginning of a line, but when they're telling you to use a particular line, then just start at the beginning of the line. And you would circle 2-digit numbers until you have 3 numbers in your sample. So I crossed them out here with little blue slashes. I don't know how clear they are, but 38 was crossed out, and so 16 was my first answer that worked. 79 didn't work, 85 didn't work, 32 was good for my sample. 62 didn't work, but then 18 did, and they only asked for a sample of 3, so that would be our answer. Okay, so moving on then, what if a simple random sample just isn't practical? So, for example, with my battery idea, if I have maybe selected 30 brands of batteries and I need to get a sample of each one, let's say I go to a battery distributor and I'm trying to determine, well, which package of batteries should I get? It could be difficult. I can't get the 13th, sample or something. So anyway, making a short story long, there are other methods. They're a little more complex, though, than simple random. So the first one is a stratified random sample. And the basic idea of this is you take your population and you classify the population into groups by some similarity, by some type of similar qualitative idea. And then each one of those groups is called a strata. Strata, means like layer, so it's kind of like layers within your population. And then you would take a simple random sample from each one of those layers. So in my little battery story, each brand of battery would perhaps be a layer, and then from each brand of battery I would choose randomly 4 AAA batteries to test. Okay. A school is a very good place to do a stratified sample because our classes naturally fall into strata. We have the freshman class, the sophomore class, the junior class, and the senior class. So if, say, Dr. Plowman wanted to gather some information from the students and he didn't want to survey every single student, he could randomly select a sample of freshmen, of sophomores, of juniors, and seniors, and that way he would get a representative sample from the whole building. And that's called a stratified sample. Here's sort of a picture of a stratified sample, and I do want you to notice a couple of things about this. So the common characteristic for these strata in this picture would be what color the figure is. We've got blue people, red people, and green people, and you'll notice that the group with red, there are 6 members in that group, whereas the other 2 groups, there are 3 members in each group. So in order to get that every individual, remember, has to have an equal opportunity to get selected. Well, in the blue group, 1 out of 3 will be selected, so that's 1/3 of the members will be selected. In the green group, same story, 1/3 of the members would be selected. So in the red group, 1/3 of the members also need to be selected, so therefore they would have 2 members in the sample. And that's their stratified random sample then. All right, the next one is the cluster sample. So cluster sample is a way to sample where you group things again, except this time it's often geographic in nature. You might group people by neighborhood or by community or by workplace or whatever. But it's, like I say, it's often geographic in nature how we group the people then. People that are, or individuals that are near each other. Then you select one or more of these clusters, of these groups, and you would collect data from all the individuals in the chosen groups. Now that wouldn't work very well with my battery story, because then I'd only be testing some brands. But it does work very well in a lot of sampling situations where an example would be, there is of course just a horrible hurricane and communities were wiped out and flooded. Well, to go in and ask every person in the community, what do you need, and what do you need, and what do you need, could take way longer than would be practical. By the time they asked everybody, the need would be so horrible, people might be dead. So instead, they do something like lay a grid over the entire devastated area, and then they randomly select different squares on the grid, and then they go to that place on the grid and they do survey everybody in that area, and therefore find the needs of the people, so that then they assume, well, if these are the needs of the people in these clusters, then we're going to say those are the needs of the people in the whole devastated area. So that would be a common thing that's done in a situation like that. There are other times too, you know about all the political polling that's going on right now with the presidential race. Oftentimes those are cluster samples. They choose, random communities and then kind of blanket those communities to get responses. Not every survey is done that way, I should clarify, but it is a common method. So this would be a picture of cluster sampling. They've taken this population. Notice it's the same size population that they showed in the other group, but they've divided them now into 6 clusters, and they've chosen 2 of the clusters, and they're going to gather data from all the members in those 2 clusters. And they would not gather any data from the other 4 clusters. All right, well, that concludes what we're doing today. That was the end. So as always, as far as your assignment, I suggest that you read the text, and we're in section 4.1, and there's a little part at the end you would not need to read because we are doing that next week. So up to page 222, except there's an activity in there called sampling sunflowers, and then they kind of follow up on that, sampling sunflowers. And you do not need to read about sampling sunflowers because they're actually going to do that activity next week, so you can skip over that. The problems that you're assigned are down below, so if you feel like this video was enough for you and you want to try the problems without reading, good luck. There's always more information in the reading. Please do have this done and ready for Tuesday's class. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Be careful. Take care of each other. Be kind.